Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. Nocturna, New Evil. I'm really digging that song. On with the review. The Injustice series. For those not in the know, Injustice is the video game series created by NetherRealm Studios, the same guys who made the Mortal Kombat video games. I no longer support NetherRealm due to some in-studio abuses and frowned upon business practices, but that's a whole other topic. The story of Injustice is an alternate universe within the DC universe. The story goes that Joker essentially tricked Superman into killing Lois Lane and their unborn child, and becomes unhinged. He becomes the tyrannical ruler of the world to rid it all of crime alongside other superheroes and villains that follow him out of fear or agendas of their own, and they call themselves the Regime. Superman's opposition is, you guessed it, Batman, and some other superheroes and anti-heroes. There's comic book tie-ins, an insulting mobile game, but that's the gist of it. If these stories sound familiar, it's because it's been done before. If you've ever watched the Bruce Timm animated classic Justice League, then you'll remember the episodes A Better World, where the Justice League as a whole went evil, calling themselves the Justice Lords. In fact, one could very well argue that the first video game, Injustice Gods Among Us, is a more mature and hardcore adaptation of that episode, as two Justice Leagues do come to blows. I'm a fan if you couldn't tell.
I miss the people we were then. Me too. Quit, Bruce. You can't win. You of all people know, Clark. I never quit.
I'd be lying if I said that this movie didn't come out of left field for me, because this doesn't seem like it's an addition to the new continuity that Warner Animation Group is pushing. In fact, it looks like it belongs to the old continuity, but as I understand it, it's not supposed to take place in either. It's just its own separate thing. So color me confused as to why this was made. I mean, is NetherRealm about to announce a new game? It is about that time. But said timing is still kind of confusing. But hey, I'm always down to show WAG support because, well, incoming you Warner Brothers comment. You Warner Brothers and your support of the husband abuser. And also, quit holding my Deep Blue Sea deep dive hostage. It's fair use, get over yourselves and let it go. Not sure what to expect out of this adaptation, but surface level reactions seem to be pretty negative toward this one. I don't know, WAG's never really let me down before, so I guess we'll see. Going in with tepid optimism. This is my honest opinion of Injustice. Superman, voiced by Justin Hartley, is tricked by the Joker, voiced by Kevin Pollak, what a casting choice, into killing Lois Lane, voiced by Laura Bailey, and their unborn child. In his grief, not only does he kill the Joker, he forces the world leaders to bow to his wishes in an effort to force the world to stop committing crimes. The Justice League fractures with Batman, voiced by Anson Mount, leading Superman's opposition. As time goes on, Superman's methods become more and more brutal, and Batman must resort to desperate measures.
Now that's a punchline.
Conflicted. On the one hand, I acknowledge that trying to adapt the video game is nigh impossible, especially if you're just trying to cram it into a 90-minute movie, so I appreciate that what this set out to do was try to adapt the comic book. In my opinion, that's a smart move. But it does bungle a few things. maybe making it a little too accessible for those who have not played the video games, but let's face it, not everyone watching this is going to play the video game, so perspective, I guess. But let's talk about it. Compare and contrast. There are definitely things that I liked and some things that I didn't. My first indication of what I was in store for was the amount of attention given to certain beats from the comic. Jimmy Olsen getting murdered, Joker tricking Superman using Scarecrow's nightmare gas, and linking his nuclear bomb to Lois's heart rate and it detonating if she died, which, you know, she did. All of that is 100% the comic, and game for that matter. Though in the comic, the news being broken to Batman about Lois's pregnancy was a much sweeter moment, as it's a quiet night and Batman smiles at Superman, really cementing their in-universe friendship. Here, it's Batman just being Batman and taking a wild guess. Though I do love Superman's panicked excitement.
Well, I'm terrified.
Congratulations, Clark.
But then we get into one of the more questionable deviations. Flash dies. Just like that. What I find particularly annoying about this is that it's pointless. No matter how you write this story, the focus should be squarely on Lois's death, because that's what sets everything off. In the games, Flash was a mainstay because, of course he was. Reluctant follower of Superman, eventually joins Batman's insurgency. Yeah, video game stuff. But here, he's just killed. And I don't think anyone brings it up. One of the most popular DC heroes, one of the major leaders of the Justice League, and I don't think anyone even drops his name. What was the point? The next thing that they kind of changed was Harley Quinn, voiced by Gillian Jacobs, and that is a really inspired choice if you ask me. She does a pretty solid job. Anyway, they more or less keep her the same, albeit rushing certain elements of Harley's character arc. Compare and contrast time, yes, in the video games, Harley does more or less become a heroic figure. In the first game, more of a loose ally of Batman's insurgency, but becoming a near sidekick to him in the second game.
How much blood is on your ledger, Quinn?
Oh, buckets full, honey. I was trying too hard to impress the wrong guy. Kinda like you with Superman.
Her arc is among the most compelling and heartfelt in the series. Here, it's clear that they're trying to sow those seeds in her becoming that more heroic Harley, but it comes across as a little rushed. More annoyingly, the movie makes her seem like she's less learning how to make her own decisions and more like someone who just gravitates toward anyone who has a more domineering personality and adjusts accordingly. Not a fan of that one, and would prefer if Harley was just written out of the story after the nuke went off, rather than dealing with her shouting,
I'm a hero now! Hero Harley! Just came up with that.
Although I do have to admit, I enjoy the nods to both the comics and the video games.
Arrow Cave is a stupid name, though. Why not call it the Quiver?
That's actually much better.
Arrow Cave is not a stupid name.
Bats have caves, arrows have quivers.
That actually makes sense.
I actually didn't remember this one. I mean, I remember that Jonathan and Martha Kent were kidnapped, but I didn't remember if it was Mirror Master who did the deed and was contracted to do so by the US government. Nope, that's comic accurate, actually. That entire exchange at the Fortress of Solitude was more or less faithful to the comic. Green Arrow, voiced by Reed Scott, fires an arrow intended for Superman, but he smacks it away and the arrow hits Jonathan instead, resulting in Arrow's death. The differences between the two are that in the comic, Superman beats Arrow to death rather than... Oh, now this movie is too good for brutal violence? I don't recall these exchanges in the comics, either between Nightwing and Robin, or Batman and Superman in the Batcave. But I gotta say, I kinda like these scenes. There's an emphasis on their respective relationships, making future events all the more tragic. This is especially true for the relationship between Nightwing and Robin, as Damian accidentally kills Dick in the prison. There's a bigger focus on their brotherly bond that I found endearing. Now, certainly in the comic, this plays out slightly more gruesome. Yes, Damian accidentally hits Nightwing in the head, but Dick's death comes from hitting a rock as he falls. Despite his regrets, Damian does ultimately enjoy Superman's regime and Batman disowning Damian as his son.
But Superman's been more of a father than you ever were.
You stopped being my son when you killed Dick Grayson. He was my son.
The point I want to make here is that the emotions from Damian are a bit more relatable, yet keeps to his arc of not allying himself with Batman. In the game, he joins the regime, but here, he goes back to the League of Assassins and his grandfather, Ra's al Ghul, voiced by Farron Tahir.
I thought I could redeem you. I was wrong.
Now here, I'm pretty sure the alliance between Superman and Ra's al Ghul was not in the comics. And I gotta say, for what they do here, I kinda hate it. What makes this annoying to me is, in the comic, there's a pretty fun fan theory that Wonder Woman is the real villain of the Injustice story, not Superman, as she's constantly encouraging him to do evil things, especially when he starts doubting himself. This eventually culminates into a gross, but in a good way, romance between the two. But Wonder Woman is clearly shown to have more conviction in Superman's new beliefs than even he does. It's not expressed in the games. In fact, you can argue that she's just his most powerful and loyal supporter, but it makes for an interesting read in the comics.
To pacify man's world, Cal needed steel, not compassion.
But you didn't bring peace. You started a war.
It's clear they tackle that idea in this movie as Superman begins to doubt his efforts, but Wonder Woman, voiced by Janet Varney, brings him back, even trying to go for a kiss. But this is as far as that dynamic goes, as it seems like this movie is desperately trying to make it seem like Ra's is the guy who's subtly pulling Superman's strings. Call me a purist, but I prefer the comic book version. It's more fleshed out, Wonder Woman is the more well-known character, and it just makes for a more antagonizing conflict.
They must be brought to justice. Allow me to help.
But one final thing that I really didn't quite appreciate was the expanded role of Nightwing, becoming Deadwing. Yeah, that's a thing now, apparently. What makes this annoying is that it feels like a cheap gimmick. In the comics, at least as far as I remember, Nightwing was dead. No Deadwing, just a dead Dick. And what do they do with this new addition to the story? Not much, other than a single scene that quickly redeems Damian and sidelines the dramatic potential of his broken relationship with his father. And it doesn't happen until pretty close to the end of the movie. By that point, I'd almost completely forgotten that Nightwing was still in this sucker.
You're better than I am. And you always were. Can you forgive me?
Already have.
There's definitely a whole lot more to not like. And an ending that made me go, oh yeah, that would solve everything, wouldn't it? Completely trivializing the entirety of the Injustice franchise with one scene. I give credit, that was pretty friggin' funny. But as a standalone movie and an adaptation of the video games, it's fine. I had as many problems with it as I didn't. I think it works more than it doesn't, so I don't know, take that for what you will, I guess. My honest rating for Injustice, a strong 3 out of 5.
You don't belong here.
Oh, yes he does. Superman's got a scar now, don't you? Do you feel it?
Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy out there. Hope to see you soon. One final caveat as you guys move on with your day. I've decided to test my luck at a Patreon, so please consider supporting the channel. No obligations, of course. No content is gated off, but any and all support would mean a lot. Links in the description. Have a great one, folks.